further legislation. And several business spokespersons had something to say that I thought was so significant from GM and Dow about the need for an active public partnership with the private sector to develop technologies shaping our future. And these two people said it could not have happened only relying on markets themselves. And it was this that characterized programs, as so many of you know, in the Recovery Act, the battery grants, which have helped to spark the beginning of a renaissance in Michigan and elsewhere industrially. It's interesting, as I talk to my colleagues, how many of my colleagues say, I come from the state that is going to be the new center of electric battery development. So many. And I look at them and I say, no, it's Michigan. No, they say, it's Ohio. Or someone told me, it's Delaware. I know Joe Biden's from Delaware, so I took that somewhat seriously. But also, this public-private partnership is the underlying premise of the R&D tax credit, which is at the heart of the extenders bill that has passed both houses. So these bills are being worked on right now, and to anticipate a question on this, I think these bills, the extender bills and the small business infrastructure job bill, that together we need to not only work on them but pass them before Memorial Day. So let me say a few words about safeguards for workers. I think those who reported knew that as I handled the unemployment comp bill just last week, I was really disturbed, that's a mild word, at the attack on the bill or the resistance to it, first among Senate Republicans and then most, fortunately not all, of the House Republicans. There are today twice the numbers of long-term unemployed compared to any other time on record. It's usually been a bipartisan effort, but the claim among Republicans is that we cannot afford it because of the deficit. These members seem to have discovered fiscal responsibility when it comes to unemployed workers, but not when it comes to paying for tax cuts for the very wealthy. So we have to extend unemployment and COBRA. We also have acted in the Recovery Act for those dislocated by trade. And fortunately, in the Recovery Act, we began some long-needed reforms of the unemployment comp system. Also, we included, and this has been somewhat overlooked, some important improvements in TANF to provide funding to help states with rising welfare loads. And it's really interesting. I do suggest those in the media look at what the states have been doing with these several $billion in this TANF program. Some of the most conservative states have essentially used TANF monies to put people back to work. And fortunately for the disabled, Congress has provided increased funding for the disabled. In Michigan today, the average wait for those who are disabled or claim to be disabled is over 3 years, and there's no health care. These are people we don't see. It's hard to find them. They're covered by privacy requirements. But we need to do better. Remember, 2/3 of the claims that are being litigated eventually are approved. And people are waiting all of these years, falling deeper and deeper into despair, and some even dying before the litigation can proceed. So let me say a word about tax policy. The rumor is Ways and Means has jurisdiction over taxes. Just a brief word about the estate tax. It expired. We're 4 months into the year without resolution of it. I find this uncertainty unacceptable and unfair. I wrote this out and I had to double check it. I'm a lawyer. I did a bit of estate planning, but I don't think I fully realized all of the ramifications. For instance, many wills are written to leave as much to the children as is below the estate tax threshold, with the rest going to the surviving spouse. Today that means that the children may well be left with nothing. Well, just a word about the expiring tax cuts. During the last economic expansion from 01 to 07, the top 1% of Americans received 2/3 of the increase in national income, while the middle class incomes essentially stagnated. The divergence of income we have seen in the last decade means we should keep the middle income tax cuts and let those for the very wealthy expire. And I think that is going to eventually happen. And indeed, this was the course set by statutory pay-go. And pay-go not only sets that course, but is a vital step for fiscal responsibility. And just a word, once we handle these issues, we can turn to our attention to reform of the tax code. Charlie Rangel, as you know, months ago unveiled a comprehensive tax reform proposal, and I think we'll continue to work on it. So just a few words about trade. As some of you know, I've been somewhat involved in this and have some deep feelings about it. The Bush administration took a hands-off approach to trade policy. Those of you who report on it have heard me say that so many times. It was wedded to the view that the more the trade, the better, no matter its terms or contents. In my judgment, we need to both expand trade and spread its benefits more broadly and be sure that our workers and businesses are playing on a level playing field. That's been the expression, most importantly, of the President, talking about the need for it to be reciprocal, not just a one-way street. And the administration has taken important steps to carry that out. A brief word, and you may want to talk more about the specific trade agreements that the administration inherited from the Bush administration: Korea, Colombia, and Panama. There's no doubt they contain some important positive aspects, but also some flaws. And when they were being negotiated, we made clear to those negotiating that they had to be changed. They weren't, and now we need to fix them. Last week we held a bipartisan meeting of key House members, 4 of us, Republicans and Democrats, with the new USTR leadership working on the Doha negotiations. It was a constructive session and maybe was a slight glimmer of hope that we can begin to revive a bipartisan trade policy. So we're going to be working together, I hope, on a broad range of issues, and perhaps you want to talk more about this. We'll see the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement and also the issues of currency. We are going to actively offer our support for the administration's G20 initiative to address unsustainable global trade and financial imbalances, including addressing currency policies. China's currency is clearly undervalued and is an important cause of our country's major trade deficits. And I'll continue to be working with this administration over the next few months as it addresses in the G20, as it must, the currency issue. So let me conclude with just a few thoughts. So many of the pending issues of 210 are in the jurisdiction of our committee. Moving ahead responsibly and responsively, and I emphasize both. We have held hearings, for example, on China currency, and recently on energy and technology issues. And we had recently a committee